I would say maybe the one concern is I haven't seen like a boatload of strikeouts. I would expect a little bit more of that from the entire group, but I mean, look, knock on wood at this point, everyone's still healthy.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
It's your boy, Evan Closky.
Back again, and we appreciate it. Ulises, do we need to tell the audience something important?
Yes, we do. And we need to tell them that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
All right. Evan, it's been a week plus since we spoke to you last. Spring training is afoot, of course. I think we are near the halfway mark, or getting close to there, I would think.
Yeah, only got 2 more weeks of games here, really. A little bit more than 2 weeks before that home opener is staring us down there on that Friday at Steinbrenner Field.
Yeah.
Catching your attention the most with the games that we have been seeing?
Curtis Mead's Ted Williams. So that's amazing. Congratulations, Rays fans. You got Ted Williams.
In all seriousness,
I mean, but really, he's been insane. He was like 15 for 21 or whatever it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like an 800 average right now.
With a cool 714 batting average, 750 on base percentage, 905 slug. These are literally adult softball numbers.
Yeah, it's hilarious. That's why I mean, it's hard not like he's number one on the list. It's just every time he plays, it's like an auto hit at least.
So with that, the estimation from your vantage point is that he makes the roster. And if he makes the roster, how well does he actually play in the regular season? Because he's clearly not going to keep this up, but
what goes up must come down. That's the scary part. Look, I mean, if he's going into the regular season hitting 700, you gotta play him. You gotta play him a good chunk of time. Let's see if he keeps that up for another 2 weeks, right? I think things will normalize a little bit. But at the same point, I think Curtis Mead makes the roster. He's earned that right. I have a tough time believing that someone's going to usurp him for that last spot. And then having said that, I think that he should be playing against all left-handed pitchers.
What happens with Elo in that scenario? Because we know that 12 are basically a lock. So if Curtis Mead gets that 13th spot, is there a stipulation in the contract that he gets released automatically so he can be a free agent? Does he need to just like spend a specific amount of time in AAA before he can opt out? Do we know any of that specification?
I don't really know the language of his contract. He signed a minor league deal. I am assuming that there is a clause in the deal that allows him to exit the Rays to search for another opportunity elsewhere. I cannot imagine that's on opening day, though. So, you sign a minor league deal. It can't be like, hey, I'm signing a minor league deal, but if I don't make the opening day roster, I'm out of here, right?
Right.
So that is so they have some time with Eloy, and the fact is, right now they're crunched. I mean, originally I would have said his spot would be Mead's spot, but you can't not take Mead. So Eloy hasn't done enough for me this spring training to prove that he's deserving of a roster spot. We're all hopeful that he can provide some power, and he certainly flashed it in that one game in Port Charlotte. But otherwise, he'll go to Durham, and hopefully a spot opens up for him. That's just that's the way it is, right? Let's see how he does in Durham, and if he's hitting 300 something and he's bopping a bunch of home runs, then yeah, the Rays are going to have to make a decision to find a spot for him on the major league roster.
Now, as far as obviously Curtis Mead has been the position player that has generated the most fanfare and interest from the Rays and the National Baseball world. And I'm curious to see how he actually translates what he's doing in spring training to the regular season. Like, is he a 260, 270 hitter with 15 bombs, depending on the number of at-bats he gets? Like, what are you seeing from him? Like, if you were to guesstimate, hey, what's his final line going to be in 2025 today?
I mean, it depends on playing time, right? I mean, I don't expect him to have 500 at bats here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that again, if he's playing mostly against left-handed pitching, he probably can hit close to 270, maybe even 280 if it's predominantly against lefties. I would assume that it's not. He's going to get some righty time in there. So I would say like 270, like 10-ish home runs, 10 to 12, and then you just kind of hope for a bunch of doubles in there and
Right.
stuff like that. But yeah, nothing crazy, but I think that he's just a very, he could be a very valuable kind of 350 at bats this season, I think, in the right role.
Put up
Mm-hmm.
some James Loney numbers, some Billy Butler numbers, and I'm happy. That's all I need.
My God, Billy Butler. Yeah, sign me up right
Butler's
now.
machine.
My gosh. Oh my God. Remember, he was so good. You know what's also so good, guys? FanDuel. FanDuel is also so good because guess what? March Madness is here. And I know Kevin is just super excited. Kevin has a great poker face, but when it comes to March Madness, boy, his smile is the biggest.
Louisville's going to win it all. Hot take.
You heard it here first. So right now, you can head over to FanDuel, and new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the net. So today, go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
So, Evan, you don't believe that Louisville's going to win the title?
I do not believe that. They've had a nice season after suffering some injuries early on, but I think the title is going to be reserved for a Duke, a Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida. One of those four teams.
Okay.
Go
An SEC
pick whoever you
team will
want.
win it, basically.
Well, I mean, ACC team can win it with Duke.
That's
A Big
true.
12 team can win it with Houston. So it's 50-50 chance. Let's say an SEC team wins it.
All right, fair enough. So we talked about Curtis Mead in the offense. Pitching wise, spring training thus far, your initial or impressions, a couple weeks in, what you've seen from that group.
Pitching's been pretty good across the board outside of Shane Baz looking terrible in his last start. But I would say maybe the one concern is I haven't seen like a boatload of strikeouts. I would expect a little bit more of that from the entire group, but I mean, look, knock on wood at this point, everyone's still healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I mean, McClanahan has his stuff. His fastball isn't quite where it needs to be yet, but his other stuff looks great. Zach Littell looks like he's ready to be kind of that fifth starter once again, rolling out those, the efficiency numbers that he does. We really haven't seen too much of Taj or Pepio yet. We're kind of getting through that second time around, so we'll have a little bit more of a feel for those guys here in the next week or so. I like Eric Orzi a lot, the relief pitcher who was brought over in the Jose Siri trade. I think that he's making a push for the opening day roster. He could potentially push Hunter Biggie out, and Biggie could start the season in Durham. A la, what Kevin Kelly had to do last year. I still expect Biggie to be a critical part of this bullpen. Otherwise, yeah, there's not really there's not outside, as I said, not outside of the Shane Baz start. There's not really a guy where I'm like, uh-oh, sort of deal. They're gonna have to make some decisions here. pretty soon. It's a tough call with the pitching staff. They're pretty stacked, and probably the most impressive pitcher maybe is Joe Boyle. So I really liked what Joe Boyle. Look, if Joe Boyle can throw strikes, he's amazing. So I
Let,
think that
let,
like he's won walks thus far. He's pumping triple digits. There's a lot to like there.
Yeah, ERA at 0 right now for Boyle. Let's talk a little bit about the bullpen, though, because if you're on YouTube, which, by the way, how are you not on YouTube and hitting that like button, hitting that
Got to
subscribe
do
button?
it. Got to
Come on.
do it.
It's right there. It's free. If you're on YouTube, you can see this great tweet by Evan Closky here. And as he says, on March 6th, this is what my Tampa Bay Rays opening day roster looks like. What are your thoughts? Let's get into the bullpen. You say Fairbanks, Uceta, Montgomery, Rodriguez, Kelly, Clevenger, Faedo. Now, with Hunter Biggie and the options, is that why you're basically not putting Biggie? It's just the options play, just like they did with Kevin Kelly last year, and they put Davinsky instead or Wagaspack?
Yeah, pretty much. I forgot to mention Montgomery looks like an absolute stud. Potential closer, like at the deadline, if they wanted to part with Pete Fairbanks and get something of value, I think Mason Montgomery could be the future closer for this team. Yeah, so look, Alex Faedo, they don't really have any options with. So if you want to keep him and try him out, you got to keep him on the roster and see what he can do. So again, I would love to see his pitching data to understand if there's promise there to the point where you want to keep him and see if you can figure it out. But he can give you some length. He gives you some of these things that I think Eric Meander is looking for. And Hunter Biggie, yes, has the options. Eric Orsi has the options, right? All that matters early in the season, utilizing those options to make sure that you can be as flexible as possible moving forward. Already in this sort of draft, I've returned Mike Vassell to the Mets. He's a Rule 5 pick. Don't think he can make the cut here. So I've already returned him. And so Faedo is going to get his shot. And then we kind of go from there. Faedo is going to have to prove himself. And if it's not working out, then yeah, he'll be chopped. And it could be a Waggers pack. It could be a Boyle. I would like Boyle to stay as a starter, which is part of the reason why he's not there either. Later in the season, if nothing opens up and you want to bring him up, maybe he does a long relief role type of deal. But as of this time, that list was weighing in a lot of the option decisions that you have at your fingertips and utilizing them in the early part of the season while you still have to fact find a little bit of some other people. And that's not all. The Rays could also make a trade. They could also deal somebody to kind of create a space as well.
Yeah. Now a couple weeks into spring training now, we talked about the offense and the pitching staff as a whole. Just generally, any major concerns or alarm bells that you've seen thus far, or pretty much everything is rolling pretty swimmingly? I know there's been a couple guys that have had to miss a couple games and spells with some minor injuries, but nothing major on that front. Or it's just the same old thing of, will the Rays have enough offense to win enough games in the regular season?
I don't know. I'm still pretty concerned about the offense. The numbers in spring training look fine as far as the team stuff when you look at it just big picture wise. But, typically in these games when the starters have played, they haven't generated much. A lot of these runs are coming at the end of games. And sometimes it's been against relief pitchers who are going to be making rosters. Sometimes there's not been. But, a lot of the prospect talent has been producing a good chunk of runs. Like, more recently, Mangum's been doing a good job. Brock Jones had a 2 home run game. Like there are some, Trey Morgan hit a home run the other day. So, like Josh Lowe isn't having the best spring, right? We already mentioned Eloy Jimenez not really doing much and Fringe making the roster. Yandy Diaz finally had a great game the other day, but he was pretty quiet. Brandon Lau has looked fine. Haven't seen the power yet. Christopher Morel, haven't seen any power from him. If he's not lifting the ball, he is not a good player. his value is lifting the ball and hitting home runs, getting doubles. I don't need him to smoke singles through the hole. If that's what he's going to do, he is not going to fit this team. And I'll also say this about Christopher Morel. Morel was signed, or sorry, he was acquired in the Isaac Paredes trade because he was a perfect fit for Tropicana Field. They do not play at Tropicana Field anymore. His fit on this team is not as sexy as it once was when he was playing in Tropicana Field. So Morel is going to have to earn his spot. Great clubhouse guy, great dude, but he doesn't have the profile that Eric Neander required him for. That's not his fault, but they don't play in the Trop anymore. So Morel still done hasn't really picked up any steam to show promise that he's going to lift the ball. Johnny DeLuca looks like the same Johnny DeLuca I remember for most of last season. And Danny Jansen's been great. I loved what I've seen from Aranda. Taylor Walls has actually hit pretty well in the spring. Caballero, Palacios have done fine, and Caminero has flashed the power that we expected. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm rolling down the entire list of. And let's say a lineup that they put out there, 5 of 9 are probably good enough. But the other 4, I still have my question marks. And I don't know if we're going to get those answers before the season, and we're going to roll into April through May, and we're going to be like, man, how long do we have to wait? It's going to be that ticking clock.
Well, we're about to get some answers in the form of our favorite segment, Closky on the Clock.
It's time for Closky on the clock.
Jazz hands. Yep, we got the jazz hands. Ulises, you want to kick it off with the first question?
Yes, I do, because when talking about Morel and DeLuca in the same sentence, and you're thinking, well, if Eloy doesn't make it, and he does go to AAA, and he starts killing it at AAA, and then DeLuca and Morel are not really doing that hot, is there a scenario where you see Eloy taking one of those 2 spots? And if so, what would need to happen?
I mean, an injury, I think he would be the first call. So there's that. 2, I think maybe it would have to be a trade. But if you're trading one of those pieces, they don't have any value because there's a reason why you're trading them. So I don't know. You're kind of stuck a little bit. If Eloy forces his way on the team, there will be some maneuvering. Let's just say that. I would imagine that at least it's going to take a full month for him to earn that ability. And then by that time, you also got to fit a spot for Hassan Kim, where there's also going to be some confusion as well on how he's going to make the roster. So, look, if Mead doesn't produce in the first month of the season, you send him down, you bop Hassan Kim in there. Maybe if Walls isn't producing, maybe there's a decision that has to be made there. But that's the tough part, is that it's probably going to take at least 2 months of data before we figure out this isn't working. You don't want to make a decision through the first month of the year and say, uh-oh. You want to at least give them some runway, but you also can't be too stubborn either. So it's a without us being in the throes of it, it's tough to give you a solid answer, but that's sort of the path.
Yeah.
All right. We were thinking about a month. We were thinking like, maybe if DeLuca is not killing it for a month, or Morel is not killing it for a month, then it might be time. But you're saying a little bit more time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if there was a team hypothetically that would give me value back on Morel right now, I would take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, nothing against Morel.
Right.
His value was in part playing in Tropicana Field, and they're not going to do that for probably at least another year and a half at best. So,
okay. Outside of Carson Williams, Chandler Simpson, Junior Caminero, and Curtis Mead, so outside of those 4, and maybe it's just naming an obscure young player, but who is one young player or prospect that we haven't talked much about, but that we should be focusing more on, or that fans should be watching more of and really honing in on over the course of the remainder of spring training?
So wait, before you start the clock, so it's Carson Williams.
Can't mention Carson Williams, can't mention Chandler Simpson, can't mention Junior, can't mention Curtis Mead.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
all right.
Good.
3, 2, 1.
Trey Morgan. Trey Morgan, first baseman, came out of LSU, won a national championship. He absolutely ripped through the minor leagues last season. Incredible profile. If you've never seen his 2-strike approach, it's fantastic to watch because it's just, he actually like chokes up on the bat and changes his stance a little bit, widens it so that he can put the ball in play, yada, yada, yada. But he's also, I think, if you were to put him in the major leagues tomorrow, he would quite possibly be the best defensive first baseman in the league. So, they tried him in the outfield last year in the minor leagues. Think that did him a disservice. I don't think there's, they want to try to figure out how him and Xavier Isaac are going to work together. And the fact is that Trey Morgan is your future first baseman. And he's a high average guy. I don't think he's going to wow you with a bunch of power, but you got to know Trey Morgan because he's the next guy really coming. I mean, Caminero's here. Carson Williams will be here next season as a shortstop at minimum. And I would imagine that Trey Morgan, if he does what he's supposed to do, which I expect, he should be here in 2026 as well.
I'm so happy you mentioned that 2-strike approach because I think it was maybe 2-3 games ago that it was a 2-2 count, and he protected in such a way. It was a half-hearted swing, but it was on purpose. Like he said, I am not striking out. I'm putting this ball in play. And it was like a half of a swing, and he still got a blooper in. It was really impressive to see that approach because you don't really see that anymore from a lot of guys like we used to when we were growing up. But yeah, we got to get Trey
back in the old days.
Back in the old days of the 90s. We got to get Trey on the show again, Kev.
We do indeed. That's got to be on our docket list of things to do for sure. Little punch list item. So
that's right. Evan, thank you so much for joining us on this morning episode, quote unquote. Could you tell folks where they could get your fantastic work?
First off, hit me up on the X at eClosky WTSP. I will respond to 99.9% of you as long as you're not a jerk. But yeah, I mean, crazy month. Valspar Championship next week. March Madness is coming down the chute as well next week. Rays opening day the following week after that. Women's Final Four coming to Tampa the following week after that. So we're cooking here. And then, late April, we got the Tampa Bay Lightning hopefully beginning their quest for a Stanley Cup championship once again. So you can find that on 10tampabay.com, 10 Tampa Bay Plus, and our 10 Tampa Bay app, streaming app you can find on Roku, Fire Stick, any of your streaming devices. And yeah, just keep tabs of us. We got you.
All right. Very good. Thank you for joining us. We'll also have you on Tuesday's episode. In the meantime, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.